It's the Full Court Press with Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker.
Welcome back to the to the show that we're doing right now.
Following the local teams, breaking down the biggest games with in-depth analysis and team interviews.
There's going to be much higher expectations, sense of awareness of what we bring to the table.
Join the show by calling into 435-752-1069 or text 435-339-0321. It's the Full Court Press.
Rose, ends it. Yes! Caught! Touchdown! They did it!
Welcome on into the Full Court Press. Jason Walker, Eric Frandsen here with you today. Time for some predictions. We'll be making some predictions, giving our keys to the game for Utah State at Iowa coming up this Saturday. Big matchup for the Aggies. A lot to prove, I would say. You know, I think I wrote this in my preview that'll be coming out later. It's like Utah State's record against ranked Power 5 opponents is, well, not very good. As far as I can tell, Utah State is winless against ranked Power 5 opponents. Now, that definition can get kind of iffy the further back you go, like, what's a Power 5 team when we're back in, like, the 1970s and conferences weren't the way they are now? Does BYU count now as a Power 5 team? Because Utah State beat a ranked BYU team once upon a time.
Yeah.
So, but just kind of the definition I was working on is like, the Power 5s that we kind of recognize, the guys are in all these different conferences now. And luckily there wasn't too much splitting hairs I had to do. Really, it was just BYU, and I think that was it. That was like the only hair I had to split. It's whether or not they were Power 5. Because aside from that, I was able to determine that Utah State, I believe, is 0-31 against ranked Power 5 opponents, going back to 1960. And I believe they've faced ranked Power 5 teams 7 times in that same span in their season opener. And they're 0-7. So, record-wise, the Aggies aren't doing so hot. And I wouldn't really expect that to change. And if you want to send in your score predictions, I asked for them on social media. You can find them there on my Twitter or X profile, whatever it's called. You can also text them in 435-339-0321. At the end of the hour, me and Eric will give our score predictions after we've gone through, keys to the game, different things like that, key players, matchups that we feel like are going to be most important, or at least, later in the hour we'll give those after waxing eloquent about a bunch of different things. So we'll give those predictions here. I should note that today will be a bit of a shortened show. We'll be dipping out at about 5:30, thereabouts, 5:27 if we're being technical, because we're going to be making way for the radio broadcast of Utah against Florida. That matchup coming tonight. You'll be able to hear it here on The Fan with those Compass Media Network, I believe.
Yeah, Compass Media Networks. So this is a broadcast team that's not focused on one team over another. So you're not going to get Homer Utah or Homer Florida. But
it's a national broadcast.
It's a national broadcast, but it's awesome that we, with our partnership with Compass, we're able to bring you that showdown. It's as interesting. This is the first the first Power 5 road game for Florida since like the early 90s.
So basically they never go anywhere.
In non-conference, I should clarify.
Yeah, obviously non-conference.
Right.
So.
And then there's also an interesting stat about Utah struggling in their openers against other Power 5 schools.
Yeah, haven't they? I think the stat I saw was they haven't beat a Power 5 non-conference opponent in like forever.
Yeah, it's been a long time. So
like they've pretty much only been successful against Pac-12 teams.
I know it's not a Tuesday, but that's one of the stats that blew my mind.
There you go. Well, you didn't get to do the stats that blew your mind and all that on Tuesday.
No, that's true.
So you got to make up for it.
Got to work it in somehow.
Yeah. Another note, just talking about Aggie sports, is 5338 points out. I think Eric, you should read the text here from 5338.
Woot woot! You didn't like my woot woot before.
No, I didn't. That's why I thought you should read the
So I got to
text.
overcompensate.
Yeah.
That was big. We'll continue the text here. Aggie
Yeah,
volleyball.
that wasn't the whole
That
text.
wasn't the whole text. I mean, that's good enough. But there is more to it. 5338 says, Aggie volleyball and Club Estes claim another hapless P5 victim in front of a sold-out crowd. The word is out. Bring your besties to Club Estes.
Yeah, that was a big win for Utah State, bringing Utah. We're talking about Utah. This was in volleyball. They come into the Wayne Estes Center, and Utah State swept them 3-0. Obviously a big win. And the thing is, BYU is going to come to town. Utah State's going to get a chance to host Utah and BYU in the same season in, I think it's more than a decade. BYU hasn't even come to Logan in volleyball in more than a decade. They're going to get them both. And obviously the first leg of that, in-season rivalry, the Aggies come away with not just a win, but an emphatic win.
Dominating fashion.
And, that's just going to show that this Aggie volleyball team is really good.
It's for real.
Yeah, their one loss so far is to the number 5 team in the country. They got a win over a Power 5. Do they call them Power 5s in volleyball? Like, we use that reference frame, and I don't know how much we should use that reference
they're
frame.
from those conferences. So,
yeah, it's like that is a Power 5 conference, but it has a certain framework in football. Of course, it is a lot of times a similar dynamic in other sports, because where there's money in football, there's also money in volleyball and all these other sports.
And speaking of that team that Utah State lost to, did you see what they did? Nebraska? They hold a volleyball game.
Oh, yeah, the 90,000
Lincoln
people.
Memorial is huge. They set all kinds of records for largest attended women's sporting event, I think, in any sport in any country.
Yeah, 90,000 is impressive. NFL stadiums don't, a lot of times NFL stadiums don't have 90,000 capacity, but they won't pull that many people. But they got that many for a volleyball game. And, that shows not only how good that program is, but, how much support they have, that many people will show up.
Very, very cool. We got a great photo gallery of the match last night on CashValleyDaily.com. Go back and check that out. Really, really cool stuff that's happening there. We had a lot of fun talking to Coach Nielsen before the season. You can go back and listen to that interview on our Light the A podcast, because that's a special team this year. They've got some special things planned. By the way, got the stat that I was thinking of.
Oh.
So Florida's game at Utah, this is courtesy of Brett McMurphy. Florida's game at Utah tonight. That's the Gators' first non-conference road game outside of the state of Florida in 11,667 days. So that happened back in mid to late September in 1991 when they went to Syracuse. So this is the first time they've had a non-conference road game outside of the state of Florida since 1991.
Jeez.
That's incredible.
Bunch of chickens.
Well, you have that kind of power and that kind of prestige. It's like, why leave your state?
Yeah, well, the thing is, I can get why these Power 5 teams are sometimes hesitant to play, headliner, non-conference matchups. These guys already play 2 or 3 of those a season in conference. This isn't like the Mountain West where you're lucky if you'll play one conference-ranked team the entire season. Heck, sometimes you're that ranked team and you're everyone else's top game.
Yes.
So, when you're Florida and you got to play, Alabama and Georgia and LSU, and I know with their divisions, I don't know exactly how many times they play, every year, every other year, whatnot. But it is just really nice to see a matchup where it's, I think this week there's a 5 versus 8 matchup. I suddenly can't remember who's playing in it. But, get a 1 versus 8, a 7 versus 13. Get us some nice top 25 matchups. It's always disappointing to go through the first 5 or 6 weeks of the season. There's barely any top 25, top 25 matchups. But it does feel like we are getting them more often these days. And I think some of that is because, these schedule makers, they're realizing, hey, we got to schedule, like, good non-conference teams. Or if we get through our conference schedule and we're trying to get into the playoff, all these talking heads who do influence to some degree the playoff, who gets into the Final Four.
Yeah.
They'll be talking about your schedule. They say, "Oh, your schedule was terrible," and they will use that
absolutely.
They will keep you out for that alone. Like you could blow out every team 120-0, but if your strength of schedule is they'll leave you out over a 2-loss SEC team probably.
Oh, absolutely.
So the schedule makes, and especially for a team like Florida, where maybe they're starting to realize now, where like. They don't have the same pull as in Alabama, who basically get into the playoff as long as they don't lose more than one game. Or, with Georgia and Ohio State, who kind of get that same treatment. So I'm hoping that of course, now with it moving to 12 teams, it might kind of reverse that trend. But teams were beginning to be, I think, a little more willing to play these big, non-conference, Power 5 to Power 5 games, which I always loved. Those are the kind of games that get me to turn on the TV and say, I'm going to watch this game. Like, I'm going to go watch Utah, Florida. I'm going to watch it tonight.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm not going to miss. There's some games I'm like, I don't care. I'll just follow that game. And if it's good, I'll tune in the fourth quarter. This one, I'm going to go home and I'm going to have it, on the TV or on the computer screen, depending on where I decide to watch it.
Yeah. Or on the radio if you're driving around.
Yeah, or on the radio. On the radio, like driving home, listen to the pregame.
Yes.
So.
By the way, so on this, the note, courtesy of Brett McMurphy, Utah has lost 5 consecutive games versus non-conference Power 5 teams.
That includes bowl games, doesn't it?
Their last non-conference P5 win was West Virginia in 2017, and that was at the Heart of Dallas Bowl. So, yes, that does include bowl games.
Yeah, a bit of a rough stretch for Utah in non-conference. Weird, because usually that was one of their things. They're really good at bowl games. But then again, they went from playing, low Power 5 to high mid-major, teams in their days in the Mountain West and early Pac-12 to, like, Ohio State.
Yeah, another playing very...
That's a bit of a step up. That's going to...
Bit of a stretch.
That's going to put a notch in your, like, perfect bowl record. I know that was
Yes.
one of the feathers in Kyle Whittingham's cap, as he had this spectacular bowl record. Not so much, but I can't really blame him for it because it's a tougher game he's playing now. But going back to the text line, I know we were mentioning Utah State volleyball. 9315 says, Estes is where you be the bestest. Go Aggies.
Yeah, very good.
It's a really fun place to play. There have been some really good games there. Obviously the women's volleyball team and even the club, men's volleyball team. It's had a couple pretty nice wins.
They've changed it up a little bit. Added some paint and dressed it up so it's a volleyball venue when you go in there.
Yeah, I need to go in there and
atmosphere.
experience it because I don't want to wait until we're doing, The problem is with these is sometimes the games happen during our show. Not so much with volleyball, but you need to go there and experience that.
Yeah.
And we obviously need to be giving some attention to the volleyball.
Yeah, they
team.
absolutely deserve it. 9315 also gave a score prediction. I don't know if you're going to save those.
I wasn't planning on saving. I was just wanting to note the Utah State volleyball 9-1-5. Whenever you send your score prediction in, we'll read it off because we'll just be progressing through the hour. I know we got off track for a minute, but we'll be progressing through the hour with our kind of keys to the game leading into our own score prediction. But we'll certainly read off your score prediction when it comes in. 9-3-1-5. He is the first score prediction I've seen that has Utah State winning. It says USU 21. The other guys, 10.
I love the optimism.
I do, too. That's also the highest score I think I've seen Utah State predicted. So, Phil Steele has Utah State losing 39-3 in this game.
Oh, what?
Like,
come on, Phil.
He's not. He is extremely pessimistic on the Aggies. He probably has one of the worst, projections for Utah State I think I've seen.
Aggies need to make him a believer.
It'd take a lot. It'd take a lot.
It'd take a lot.
I think being closer than 36 points would certainly be a start. But, yeah, and the Vegas spread is like 23.5. somewhere.
It was
around
as
there.
high as 25,
Yeah.
so it's moving a little bit in USU's favor. And maybe that's part of the uncertainty with Cade McNamara, though as the week goes on, it appears more and more that he's going to play. I don't know how much he's going to play, but I think that they will ceremoniously trot him out on the first play on offense, and then they'll just kind of see how well he does. But I will be surprised if he finishes the game.
I don't know. I think if he plays, they're just going to play him the whole game, unless they are getting that 39-3 kind of game going for him. If it's a close game and the Aggies are within 1 or 2 possessions, if they feel comfortable enough having Cade McNamara out there, they're going to keep him out there. I don't feel like this is a case where it's like this, load management, in basketball where you play your star player 20 minutes and then pull him out. And especially not a position like quarterback, where swapping quarterbacks in and out can throw off your team. It can throw off the way that you play and the rhythm that your guys are in, your wide receivers, your running back, even your offensive linemen. If you've got one quarterback who's maybe a bit more mobile, maybe wants to run a little bit more, maybe hangs onto the ball a bit longer. Obviously the running backs, even the simple things of handoffs and read options. And I don't know how much read option Iowa runs. Or, obviously the wide receivers, the chemistry there. So if Cade McNamara is going to play, and if the game is close-ish, he's going to play effectively the entire game. But obviously if it's not close, then they'll pull him whenever, I think the standard is whenever the other team doesn't have enough possessions to come back.
Right.
So if it's a blowout, maybe sometime late third, the middle of the fourth, they might pull him out. But if it's close, he's playing the whole game. Unless he plays really bad or re-aggravates the injury. Those are the things that would take him out. Is if they think they're making the injury worse, or if he just plays so awful, which I wouldn't see that happening. I really only see him being pulled in the case of a blowout or if they think they're making the injury worse. I don't see a load management style, start for McNamara.
Yeah, I agree. I think it'll come down to how's the game going. If they've got a decent lead, then they likely pull him at some point in the fourth quarter. If he plays, then they'll likely play him for a good chunk because they want to see how he's going to help their team in live game situations. But there is still a bit of a shadow over, is he fully healthy? And they want to make sure he is healthy for the full season, not just for a few quarters against Utah State.
Yeah, well, I feel like the way they can do this, for one, it's not like Iowa's a super passing offense anyway. They don't emphasize that. They're a bit more of a run team. And so McNamara is probably going to spend a lot more time just handing the ball off, and they're not going to ask too much of him. Of course, in Iowa's offense, they're not asking a ton of the quarterback anyway. So it's helpful for McNamara that they won't really have to change their game plan, and it'll still be relatively soft on him as far as, not causing him too much exertion. Of course, last year they allowed like 3 sacks per game, so if they keep that up, it'll maybe be a bit of trouble for McNamara. But I think going against Utah State, they're going to want to run the ball, and they're going to run the ball until Utah State proves that they're going to stop him, which I'm skeptical of happening.
Big lead fullback, great tight ends. They're going to utilize them a lot.
Yeah, multiple tight end looks, big running back, big fullback, big offensive lineman.
But they'll occasionally take a shot.
Yeah, they will. I think a key for Iowa is it's going to be run, and then when Utah State commits to stopping the run, they pass. And then you get burned for a big play because maybe you brought a blitz or had a one-on-one matchup with the wide receiver because of blitz, and then suddenly you get burned, then you get a long touchdown. But I think that could be a key for Iowa. I know we'll get into this later, but I think, honestly, I know we've talked about Iowa's defense, but I do think the bigger key in this game is Iowa's offense versus Utah State's defense.
Yeah, no, I agree. We didn't get a chance to get to it yesterday, but we will play these. The interviews that I was able to do after practice on Tuesday. I got a chance to catch up with MJ Tafisi and Rasul Faisan and get their thoughts about how fall camp has kind of concluded, and now they're getting ready for Iowa. And what do they see in the Hawkeyes? Like what opportunities are there? How are they preparing for their season openers? So we'll hear from them coming up in a little bit as well here on the Full Court Press.
Yeah, so we'll have that coming up. We'll have our keys to the game. What would a Utah State victory look like? What would it take for them to get a victory? And, if they don't do that, how close can they get if they can't get a victory? And is this the kind of game that you look for a moral victory? So we'll get into that coming up next and throughout the rest of this hour here on the Full Court Press.
Les Olson IT is your source for top quality technology. We carry the latest desktop and laptop PCs in stock, configured to your specific needs, and backed by our award-winning support team. And if your business demands high-performance hardware, we offer custom-built computers that can tackle any task. We also offer great computer accessories like monitors, keyboards, speakers, Fujitsu document scanners, and more. Get a quote today.
Les Olson IT.
Make it 3 years in a row. Advanced Heating and AC is honored to be named gold medalist for the best of Northern Utah in the AC HVAC category. They thank you for your support and vote of confidence in their company. You have many choices when it comes to your home's heating and air conditioning system. Make sure you choose the gold medal winning company, Advanced Heating and AC. Call 752-7272 or stop by their showroom west of DI. Online at advancedheating-ac.com.
When it comes to home care, it's important to know you have a choice. If you or a loved one is in need of hospice or home health services, remember that Primrose Home Care and Hospice believes in treating the patient as well as the problem. We work directly with you and your doctor to create a health plan that's catered to your needs. Our team is devoted to providing options in the freedom and safety of your own home. Visit us at primrosecare.com or call to schedule a free consultation. Primrose Home Care and Hospice, your local hospice and home health provider since 2006.
The Napa Rock and Roll Truck will be in Preston, Idaho, Thursday, August 31st. The Napa Rock and Roll Truck will be full of great prices on all tools and equipment for Milwaukee, Robinair, Carlisle, Craftsman, and more. The Milwaukee Tool Rep will be on site with demos and deals. 1 day only, Thursday, August 31st. Find the Napa Rock and Roll Truck with all your tools on sale at the Napa Auto Parts store in Preston.
Napa! Thursday on Compass Media Network's coverage of NCAA football. We kick off the 2023 season with a cross-country showdown as Cam Rising and the 14th-ranked Utah Utes host Graham Mertz and the Florida Gators. Hi, it's Greg Daniels. Join Chad Brown and me for all the action as the hunt for the college football playoffs starts now. It's number 14 Utah hosting Florida. If it's NCAA football, it's right here.
Pre-game begins Thursday afternoon at 5:30 on Sports Talk Radio, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, The Fan.
New federal guidelines have nearly doubled the number of Americans eligible for lung cancer screening. Insurance companies are required to cover these tests for those ages 50 to 80 who currently smoke or used to smoke. Along with new treatments, lung cancer screening saves lives. If you are 50 to 80 years old and smoke or used to smoke, talk to your doctor about lung cancer screening. For more information and to find a screening center near you, visit the National Lung Cancer Roundtable at nlcrt.org.
It doesn't matter who you root for. The Full Court Press has all the high school sports covered. The Full Court Press. Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and online at 1069thefan.com.
Four 339-339-0321. That's the number to text in. Join the show. Doing score predictions today. I've asked for them. You can text them in on the text line. I asked for them on social media. I've gotten a few in. Some more optimistic than others. There's some that are really optimistic, some that are really pessimistic. USU Aggies 12 says 20-10 for Iowa. Sam McConkey has 28-17 for Iowa. I'm going to butcher your last name. Sam Briner says 24-10 to Iowa. Nate Bosworth has 52-13 for Iowa. And then Andrew Wilson has the Aggies winning 28-27.
Ooh, a close one. Fox Sports prediction, just looked this up, 33-11 for Iowa. And you had Phil Steele.
Phil Steele at 39 to 3.
Yeesh.
I was trying to look up other predictions, but there was all just a bunch of articles about betting lines. I was like, I want your predictions, people. I don't want what you think the betting lines are because I don't care. Of course, whenever you search for predictions, it's just keywords for, all their betting material.
Yeah, that's right.
It's all you get when you search for
their
predictions.
preferred betting platforms.
Basically. Yes. That's a lot of what that is. But you can find score predictions here. So far we've got mostly in favor of Iowa. A lot of people predicting Utah State to be within 1 or 2 possessions. Couple thinking they're blowouts. National outlets largely favoring, at least in the direction of Iowa, coming at least close to covering the spread. Aggie fans being a little more optimistic, thinking it's going to be a 1 or 2 score game, or even a Utah State win. Which is about what you'd expect for a team for a fan base that's becoming, I think, increasingly optimistic about this team. And I would hope that Utah State's able to fulfill some of that. Because the thing is, one of the things that I was, when I was looking at, gathering the data for that number I threw out at the beginning of the show, where Utah State's 0-31 against ranked Power 5 opponents in non-conference. But one of the things I picked up on is that, even though they're a nice little solid offer, got a donut on the left side of their record against ranked Power 5 opponents. Even, close losses have tended to herald pretty good seasons. You look at 2011, they lose narrowly. It was the year they narrowly lost to Auburn, that 42-38 game. That year, they only go 7-6, but that broke a 14-year run of seasons without a winning record. The best record they had in the 14 years before that was 6-6. Every other year was a losing season. So they narrowly lose to number 23 Auburn, who were the defending champions, and they began a turnaround.
Yeah.
In 2012, they faced Wisconsin. Now, Wisconsin wasn't ranked, but they were receiving votes. So I'm stretching the definition a little bit here. But they narrowly lose that game. I mean, what else happened in 2012? Win the WAC, go 11-2, one of the banner years for Utah State, and really one that really accelerated that turnaround. From going 7-6 to being a conference champion, their first double-digit win season in program history. Then you also look at 2018. Narrowly lose to Michigan State. Number 11, I think they were ranked. 38-31. Well, what do they do in 2018? They have a pretty dang good year.
Yeah.
So, I've said it before. Coaches hate the term moral victory, but they need moral victories, especially at the G5 level. You don't get moral levels at the P5 level, but at the G5 it is possible.
Yeah, you can't tell me that the mood and the attitude of a football team isn't affected by competing but closely losing on the road against a Power 5 school versus going on the road, getting your butt kicked, just demolished, and heading home with your tail between your legs and just morally dejected.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, we just could not do anything against those guys versus, oh man, it was a competitive game and we were one play away here and there's a frustration, sure, in both, but on the one hand, it's that frustration like, I know that we were so close. I know we can compete. We went on the road, we played hard, and we almost got them, but man, we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, there's this competitive fire that's still in you. And, you go to it, next week and you're still remembering that. And you're remembering that one play where maybe you messed up and you're, hitting the drills hard. It's like, hey, I got to fix this. And it's that fire that's still in you and you can feel it versus just being dead inside. Why am I even playing football anymore? If that's what this is, It's like when Utah State got their cans kicked by LSU and, in last year when they lost to Alabama. I know both those seasons Utah State ended up going to a bowl game, in 2019 and 2022. But it wasn't like in 2011 where a 7-6 season was the best they'd done in 14 years. In 2019 and 2022, those were relatively, disappointing seasons, partly because they were following up 11-win seasons. So, the Aggies, and I know there's a difference between playing eventual NCAA champion LSU and Alabama versus playing Michigan State and, Wisconsin and Iowa. But still, show up to the game, play hard, don't be facing their backup quarterback in the third quarter, and you can feel good about the game. Like San Jose State, there's good reason for them to feel good, even though they lost 56-28 to USC. They were within a touchdown at halftime. There were things they did positive in that game against the number 6 team in the country. In Utah State, they're playing number 25. You're playing a team that has an elite aspect to them, but they have weaknesses in the other areas. You cannot go out there and let your opponent have a perfect game.
Right. Yep. Absolutely correct. A couple texts coming through, 5338. Hey, Jaywalk. Did you ever get more info on Tatum Stahl's health status? Looks like she played just a little bit last night.
I completely forgot to look in. I was going to ask, reach out to Utah State, and it completely spaced my mind. Yeah, I know she did play a little bit last night. I think she's just probably recovering from an injury. I know I kind of promised I was going to do that, and then I completely slipped up on it.
8908. Could you explain why Iowa pays USU so much to come play there? I don't know what the payout is. I have to look it up, but that's pretty much the MO of any P5 program. They will pay. There's a check that they will cut for any. Sometimes for any non-conference opponent. There's some exchange that happens, but particularly for G5 schools like Utah State, they don't go and play these games unless there's a significant check that comes USU's way in exchange for making the trip. But that's why. These are venues, big venues. They sell a lot of tickets. They rake in a lot of money on game day, and that's part of the business of how college football works. That's how Utah State can sustain itself in its entire athletic department instead of being totally reliant on student fees and the institution of the academics, like paying for everything in athletics. A big part of that is you have to go out and play these games to get a big paycheck to help fund your operations.
See, Utah State obviously has no leverage to get any Power 5 teams to come here. But those Power 5 teams, if you take out this check, what motivation does Utah State have to go play Iowa? None. You have to travel halfway across the country. You'll play in a giant stadium, and you're most likely going to lose. Like, why would you schedule pretty much like I said, when you play ranked Power 5 teams, Utah State's over. Why would they willingly put that on their schedule when they know they're just going to lose? And they may not get that, any real benefit if they get blown out. So, if a Power 5 team comes and says, hey, come play us, come on the road, spend money to travel, lose by a lot, that's not a very attractive proposition. Now, if Iowa comes and says, and this is the number I just Googled to look up, what if we pay you $1.65 million to travel here? Yeah, you probably lose, but maybe you'll win, and we'll pay you $1.65 million to do so. Yeah, that's a much more attractive proposition.
Absolutely. And you can justify it. Look, these teams, they want to go up against teams that will help them. The thought process is that a school like Iowa is going to play in a superior conference than what Utah State's going to play in. That they're going to have superior athletes than what Utah State will have. When you look top to bottom, and there may be a few here and there that Utah State has, but when you look at top to bottom, Iowa is going to believe that they have superior athletes. But they want to get those athletes tuned up, dialed in, before they get into their conference. And when they're playing in the Big Ten, you're going up against some of the top teams in the country. So you want some games to kind of knock the rust off so that when you get into conference play, you're hitting on all cylinders. So that's why they do these games. That's why they have a smaller school make the trek across the country, get a big fat paycheck.
Yeah, so there is in the end, mutual interest as long as the Power 5 teams are footing a bit of the bill and helping fund it, a little bit of these, smaller programs. Like Utah State, their athletic budget, I think, is somewhere in the 35 to 40 million range. Almost $2 million. It's like, like 1/20th of your budget in one go.
Yeah.
What
on
other
one Saturday?
Yeah. What other event is getting you 1/20th of your budget? Just about.
Yeah, what other event can you pull off if we're going to bring in that kind of dough in 3.5 hours? It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Not at this level.
So it's a big benefit for Utah State, and heck, every year there are Power 5 programs that end up paying $1.5 million, give or take, for the privilege of losing to a G5 team. And it's going to happen this year, most likely.
Yeah.
I guess.
Let's do this. Let's find out about the player perspective about going to make this trip. MJ Tafisi, he's a Utah State Aggie who's been here for a little bit. He came from Washington, so he understands kind of the Power 5 situation, playing in a large stadium. But he's been at Utah State now for a few years, and he's grown into a very important aspect of what Utah State does on defense. And I had a chance to catch up with him after practice earlier this week to talk about how practice has gone, new defensive coordinator, new defensive system, and trying to take on Iowa on the road.
Number 2, MJ Tafisi, linebacker for Utah State. And last year, things... you started off great. You had a neck injury that kind of took you out of things a little bit. How did that time away from football kind of affect you and get you kind of into getting ready for this season?
Yeah, I'd say I wasn't really away from football mentally, physically, obviously. The injury happened. But it made me better prepare myself physically, really. That was the biggest part, was trying to get stronger, both neck and then obviously everything else. I wanted to come back stronger, especially with this upcoming year is my last year in college.
You're kind of like one of the elder statesmen there, experienced players on defense. And what's that like, kind of trying to integrate some of the new guys there as to what you expect of them as someone who's been in this system a little while longer than some of these other guys? For the biggest thing for me is sharing them my experience, me first going to college and everything. But the biggest thing I want to see is just a work ethic. Acting like you want to be there, even if you don't want to. Yeah. Last year, the first half of the season, kind of rough, but then you guys rallied and got to a bowl game. How has that kind of propelled the team coming into this season, or is it that's in the past and this is a whole new ball game now?
Yeah, that was in the past. This is completely new team, new defense, new offense. But everyone is willing to work, better themselves on and off the field. I think we'll do a great job.
You mentioned new defense. You got a new defensive coordinator. How's that been, kind of adapting to Coach Cawthon and what he's asking of you guys to do? We've heard some players say it's maybe a little bit more complicated system now.
Yeah, it is a bit complicated, but Washington transfer, it was pretty similar to the defensive scheme when I was at Washington. So adapting wasn't too difficult. But, yeah, we're just here to work.
And then I guess just last question, just Iowa. What do you see in the Hawkeyes preparing for that offense? There's some uncertainty with who's going to be the quarterback. That's not an offensive explosive team, but there's a kind of a mandate there that they have to be more offensive. So what are you seeing early on in your study of Iowa and getting ready for the game on Saturday?
Yeah, it's always difficult to read them, especially first game. We can only expect what they did before. But what I see is definitely a big team, strong dudes. Their highlights are the tight ends, and then obviously they got the new quarterback. Came from Michigan. He looks pretty solid too. He has game experience, which is a big thing. But yeah, we're just here to put our head down and work, play football.
Very good. Well, MJ Tafisi, best of luck on Saturday.
Thank you.
So, yeah, Utah State linebacker MJ Tafisi, obviously going to be a big part of Utah State's efforts against the Iowa offense. Now, we spent a lot of time focusing on how, really friggin' good that Iowa defense is. But my opinion, bigger key is going to be how, MJ Tafisi and the rest of that defense slows down Iowa and their offense.
Yeah, I agree. if they can give Utah State more possessions and opportunities on offense, that's what's going to be the difference in the game.
Yeah. We're going to take another quick break. When we come back, we'll each kind of give a key to the game. One of the biggest things we feel like is the key for the game. And then we'll also close off the hour with our score predictions. That's all coming up next here on the Full Court Press.
Nearly 21 years ago, Cafe Sabor opened their doors in historic Logan train station. With the help of hundreds of amazing employees and patronage of thousands of wonderful customers, Cafe Sabor is proud to have been voted 3 years in a row Cache Valley's favorite Mexican restaurant in the Best of Northern Utah contest. Follow Cafe Sabor on social media for giveaways and promotions. Search Cafe Sabor for a restaurant near you. Thank you, Cache Valley, from your friends at Cafe Sabor.
Adams Wealth Advisors is proud to announce that they've been named as one of the best financial advisory firms in the country by USA Today. Start maximizing your wealth potential with a team of experienced advisors who specialize in working with high net worth individuals. Let Adams Wealth Advisors help you achieve your financial goals with a personalized approach to investment management and planning. For more information on how Adams Wealth Advisors can help you achieve your financial goals, go to adamswealthadvisors.com. That's adamswealthadvisors.com.
Just in time for the hunt, Al's Sporting Goods has you covered. Vortex, Al sells more than anyone. Every item is on sale. Al's has your gun, 10,000 of them on sale. The SDS 12-gauge shotgun, $99. Radical Firearms SOCOM rifle, $399. Free electronic muff with every gun purchase while supplies last. In stock, over 5 million rounds of ammo, more than you'll see anywhere, including 9mm ammo, only $12. Knives, trail cams, Mystery Ranch backpacks, Sitka camo, archery, it's all on sale at Al's Sporting Goods Labor Day sale. Every sport, every season.
This is Nate Lamson with Valley Office Systems, your home team when local matters. Valley Office Systems is your local provider for all things office, copiers, printers, furniture, and document management. Proudly serving Cache Valley since 2007. Visit valleyofficesystems.com.
Join the show by calling 435-752-1069 or text 435-339-0321. It's the Full Court Press with Eric Franson and Jason Walker.
Got the Napa Rock and Roll Truck. It's in Preston, Idaho today. Actually, I don't know. Is it still? They didn't write down when when this closes.
Hours are.
Yeah, because it's there today. Imagine it was there most of the day. Rock and Roll Truck with all tools, equipment, Milwaukee, Robinair, Carlisle, Craftsman, more. So maybe run up there really quick, or if you're up there in Preston, stop by because you don't have too much time left there for the Napa Auto Parts. Wanted to go over the keys to the game. I know I've got several, and I don't have time to go super in deep with all of them. We'll start with you, Eric. Like, what do you feel like is your biggest key to the game? And I'll pick one of mine based on what you say. Just the biggest key for you in this game.
I think, obviously, you got to score touchdowns. You can't exchange field goals for touchdowns. But I feel like in this game, you have to get points whenever and however you can. And, yes, touchdowns are going to mean more than field goals. But I think scoring opportunities may be limited in this game. So they've got to be able – they have to be opportunistic when they can when it comes to points. And I don't think we should see a field goal attempt or a field goal not just an attempt, a field goal made – as a potential lost opportunity. So I think that accumulating points whenever and however you can is big. And that means that kind of as a side of that or supporting factor in this is that you have to have drives that are sustained. A hurry-up offense that goes 3 and out quickly is like death to your defense. So you have to be able to sustain some drives and keep your offense on the field.
I think that kind of fits a little bit, especially when you're talking about, getting points wherever you can. The way I kind of phrase is don't waste chances inside the 30.
Yeah.
Ideally, those are touchdowns, but just don't waste points, where you maybe should be getting more. If you're inside the 5, don't settle for a field goal. If you just make it inside the 30, don't, take a sack and then suddenly have to punt because you're back on like the 39. Don't waste your chances because, like I said, you said the scoring chances are probably going to be somewhat limited. So take advantage of every single one you get. Get points however you can. Don't squander those chances. My biggest key, so I know I had one where I just talked about, I talked about the defense needing to play well. Like that to me is the bigger key than Utah State's offense, is how does the defense do against Iowa? One of the keys was just create turnovers, give the offense a short field. So, giving them more chances inside the 30, handing them layups if you can. But for me, probably even a little bit bigger than that, getting turnovers, is 3 words. Stop the run. If the Aggies do not do that, they will lose, and they will lose by 3 touchdowns. It's as simple as that. Iowa could put up 39 points and throw for 110 yards. You need to be able to stop the run. Iowa will be content to just keep plowing into your defensive line, getting 5 yards here, 6 yards there, and when you blitz, 8 guys try and stop the run, they're going to pop for a 37-yard gain, and that's, half their passing yards for the game. Then they run it again, all the way in for more and more touchdowns. They're going to break off big runs if you can't stop it. Maybe you commit guys, they go to the wrong gap, and then suddenly, their running back's running for a 55-yard touchdown. They need to stop the run, or this game is over.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, and that's kind of similar to one of the ones they have on defense, is that there's a tall order for Utah State's defensive line and linebackers. Iowa's got some big bodies up front on that offensive line and their lead fullback to try to create space, and that's how they use their tight ends sometimes too. So it's a tall order to take some of that away, and if they can, really, I think this Utah State's got to hang in there, and I think if they make it difficult for Iowa to move the ball, there's already a lot of discontent about Iowa offense, and they've been hearing a lot about there's this mandate, they got to try to do more to score points. If Utah State can keep it down and held down and don't let these guys get going, there's going to be growing frustration throughout the game and a lot of anxious fans and an anxious team as well that might start to get a little bit more desperate in their play calling. And so I think that really starts up front for Utah State, puts a lot of emphasis on those defensive linemen and those linebackers to slow things down, muck it up a bit, and force Iowa to start to get a little bit more aggressive and take a little bit more risks, because they are all trying to prove to the world that they can score points and go vertical. And Utah State, I think, has opportunities if they are forced into doing that.
Yeah, and if you make, Iowa uncomfortable, like Iowa on defense, they try and make other teams uncomfortable and then, force them into risks, and then Iowa gets turnovers. If you do that to Iowa, and, if you hold Iowa down, then this is a game. If you hold a team to 10 or 13 points, you're always in the game.
Absolutely.
You can't be blown out if you only allow 13 points. And so for the Aggies, no matter how good or poor their offense does, if their defense holds Iowa, doesn't allow them to get tons of points, there will always be a chance that a couple of big plays from the offense could win this game.
By the way, we got a text from 6823. Tool truck has left Preston.
Dang it.
But the tool sale is still on.
Yay.
So that's good. Thanks for the update, 6823.
Thanks for the update. I got to since we did that liner through August 31st, and I was like, we're late in the day. They might have done it already. But there's more sales upcoming, starting in early September there, tomorrow.
9315 texting in, if USU had money, like a team like Iowa, we would beat up on lots of P5 teams.
Yeah, look at Utah. They go to the Pac-12. They struggle a little bit, but more and more money comes in, and they're going to the Rose Bowl. Who would have thought?
Yeah. 0113. USU keeps it close, but Iowa scores late to put it away, 27-13, hoping it's not a blowout.
Yeah, certainly hoping it's not a blowout. And again, if it's key for the Utah State defense, if they hold Iowa, then maybe it ends up 27-13. If it's late and they score another one to kind of go up by 2 scores. But that's 20-13, middle of the fourth quarter. Probably okay with that. We're going to take another final break for this first hour. When we come back, we'll give our score predictions. What do me and Eric think will happen in this game? Who's going to win? What's the score going to be? That's coming up next on the Full Court Press.
Hi, this is Gene Needham of SC Needham Jewelers. I would like to welcome all USU students back to Logan. Perhaps this is the year you'll get engaged. Thousands of Aggies have shopped our store over the past century. We are Utah's oldest jewelry store. My children, Sylvan, JD, Elizabeth, Stuart, and Stratford represent our 5th generation of jewelers. When choosing a ring, visit our website at scneedham.com or simply visit our store in downtown Logan, where Utah gets engaged. SC Needham Jewelers, middle of the block at the sign of the clock.
Elements has delicious lunch specials. Soup, salad, and bread for just $10 is tasty and quick. Elements lunch menu is full of scrumptious items. Wood-fired pizzas are an excellent choice that include barbecued chicken and the bee's knees. The fresh battered halibut fish and chips with seasoned fries is always a hit. And don't forget the fan favorite, Chipotle fried chicken sandwich. Thursdays, enjoy Elements house-made smoked brisket, casual or professional. Open Monday through Thursday, 11:30 to 8 p.m. and Friday and Saturday, 11:30 to 9. Visit theelementsrestaurant.com for reservations.
Advanced Fireplace and Stove wants to thank you for voting them 3 years running the gold medal winners in the Best of Northern Utah contest. With over 35 display models in their showroom, their goal is to make the process of making your home comfortable and cozy an easy experience. With premier brands like Napoleon and Dimplex, they have something for every style, every home, every budget. Building or renovating, they've got you covered. Advanced Fireplace and Stove, where comfort is their business.
Back to school savings are going on now at Daryl's Appliance. This is Jay with Daryl's Appliance. Save on our best-selling in-stock freezers today. Our Frigidaire 20 cubic foot upright freezer is only $10.99, or a Frigidaire 14.8 cubic foot freezer is $800. It can handle the extreme heat and freezing temperatures in your garage. All backed by Daryl's service and warranty team. Daryl's West on Airport Road, open until 6 p.m. on weekdays, 5 on Saturday.
It's the Full Court Press with Eric Franson and Jason Walker.
If you want to give your score predictions here on the Full Court Press, 435-339-0321. Had a couple more come through on Twitter. U-State Iceman has USU winning 9-7.
Ooh, low scoring.
Absolute low scoring thriller there. JK47 has Iowa winning 35-3. To kind of balance that out. So
the other way.
We're going to give our score predictions. And who do you want to go first, Eric? I'm going to let you choose.
Doesn't matter. I'm ready to go.
I told you to choose.
Okay, I'll go. Look, I like Utah State's changes on offense. I like the wide receivers they have. I'm more confident in their running back core. I'm uncertain about the offensive line. I'm uncertain about Cooper Legas' growth. I think he's making some headway, but I still need to see what kind of growth he's making as a quarterback. I'm also concerned about Utah State, just so many new faces on defense at key positions. I think there's some depth there. I think there's some exciting opportunities there, but I just still don't quite know how they're all going to come together just yet. So I think Utah State can make it interesting for stretches of this game, but I just think Iowa is going to be a little too much for USU. I think that point spread is still a bit much. I think Utah State will keep it closer than that. I think it'll be Iowa 27, Utah State 10 when they go to, was it Kinnick Stadium?
Yeah, Kinnick Stadium, Iowa City, Iowa. So I told you this during the break. I had scratched out I've had a pretty consistent idea of what I think Iowa's going to score. When it comes to Utah State, I told you during the break, I've scratched out Utah State's score on my notes 3 times. And I'm going to even call an audible once again just because I'm so uncertain. Because I kind of agree with you. I think Iowa, they're just going to be a little too much concerned about the defense. I think Iowa's going to be able to put up points. Just with the run game. I said the key for Utah State is stop the run. I don't think they're going to do that in this game. They might be missing Hale Motuapawaka and, with a lot of other young guys, especially at defensive end. You got 2 really young guys at defensive end. more young guys on the interior. I just don't see that being a recipe for being able to stop the run very well. MJ Tafisi's one guy. It's like the one guy I know we can depend on, and Holly might be out. So I've got Iowa scoring 30 points. With Utah State, I think they can, I think their offense is good enough to get them in good positions, but I'm worried about the kicking game. I think they're going to miss a few field goals that would make the score higher. I had them as high as 13 points at one point in all my crossing out. But I think I'm going to settle on Iowa 30, Utah State 9 as my final score prediction. So kind of close to that spread, but I think Utah State manages to cover by a little bit. So that's my score prediction. So you have Iowa 27, Utah State 10.
Yep.
And I've got Iowa 30, Utah State 9. Don't go away. We'll have more coverage of Utah State, more preview.
I'm Dan Patrick, and this is Above the Noise. Ever since the departure of the four-time MVP, Aaron Rodgers, expectations around the Packers have hit a decade-long low. The uncertainty around the quarterbacking position has caused a lot of fans to doubt the Packers' plans this season. They're currently listed as the team with the longest odds to take home the NFC North, but the Pack may see things differently. The current roster has won 3 of the last 4 division titles. Outside of Rodgers, that core is still largely in place. It was also reported yesterday the team had trade talks surrounding disgruntled Colts running back Jonathan Taylor. We know that running backs have become devalued. So for Green Bay to target a running back demanding a contract extension with high injury risk may show the Packers aren't planning on a rebuild year. Plus, they already have Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon under contract. You don't go after a star running back unless you're vying to compete, right? I'm Dan Patrick, and this is Above the Noise.